Hi guys, welcome to the channel and welcome to this deep down review of the Army Downwind Performance Range. Look, the whole point of this is to answer the question, is the range just for the pros, or can your average rider use it, get something out of it and progress to the upper echelons? So without further ado, let's get straight in and answer that question. Before we do, there is a bit of a bonus at the end. I'm going to do a quick 10 cents review of the standard downwind board as well and see how that compares to the downwind performance. So stay tuned. Please remember guys, like the main purpose of doing these videos is yes, to give you some information, but mainly to raise money for Bear Cottage, the children's hospice based here in Sydney. They do an incredible job looking after the kids with life-changing illnesses. Please, as a minimum, can you like and subscribe? Every single person that does that, it generates a revenue and every penny is going directly to them. If you've got something out of it, if you've enjoyed it, please can I ask you to donate? The link is in the description below. It really means a lot. One last thing before we get into it, I promise. The more observant of you will notice I've picked up a bit of an injury. Unfortunately, I prone foiled into a sandbar, put my hand out to stop myself, and I've snapped my collarbone. Yes, very painful, very frustrating. I'm off the water for a long period of time. The so what of it is that I only had these for about a week before I did this, so I don't have a lot of footage. Unfortunately, so you're just going to have to hear me talk. I'll try and put up some pictures to keep it a little bit more interesting. Okay, let's start with my dimensions and my experience and my level so that you can compare. So I'm at 80 kilos, I'm pretty competent and now flat water paddling up. Bay runs in closed water, again, very comfortable in that environment. Out in the ocean, look, it depends on the conditions. If things go my way, I'm really comfortable, really happy. I can ace runs, but I still have the occasional shocker. So still lots to learn, but that's kind of where I am at the moment. With that in mind, I ordered the 108 litre board, which is 8'11", 17¼ wide. I was really worried that that was going to be too advanced for me, but I am super glad that I went down that level, went down those dims, because it's perfect for me, and I'll tell you why. Let's get started first of all with flat water. I think this is a great leveler. It eradicates a lot of variables, and so you can see exactly what it is your new bit of kit is giving you. So I highly recommend you get a new downwind board or foil, get on some flat water and just get a feel of it first of all. So straight off the bat, I found the stability of the board, the downwind performance board, amazing. I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be a struggle. The next thing that I was really blown away about is by how fast it paddles. It glides like a canoe, and that's what it's designed to be able to do, is to be able to go really fast in that displacement mode so that you can get a flow over the foil and start using smaller foils, and it does it amazingly. Now with that in mind, there is a slightly different technique to what I have been used to with the smaller boards. So what I've been doing is getting a little bit of speed and then starting to pump up. With these types of boards, what you need to do is paddle to get speed first of all, and then come up. So it's all about getting that speed across the water, getting the flow over the foil, and then working it up. If you work it up too early, then it's very difficult to bounce it off the water, is what I found. So there's a bit of a slight change in my technique needed when I was on flat water. As for the performance downwind foils, well, look, that's slightly harder. I have to say, I do struggle sometimes to flat water paddle up the 930, the biggest one they do at the moment, and that's messing around with different tails and shims. It really does take a lot of technique. So my advice, if you're an intermediate, would be to save those for the ocean and just use the high aspect 1180, 1080 for your flat water paddle ups.
Right, so we are doing a bay run, enclosed water run. It is windy, so got no mates today, so I'm just using the bike shuttle. It's a great way of doing it, but I've got the downwind performance board. See how it goes? straight up on this thing. Absolutely. You know what? Like, I hardly had to paddle. The wind was literally blowing it up so fast. This board is just really nice to turn. Really nice turn. It's fitting within, well, like nicely. Woo. Yeah, it's amazing. So impressed with this board. Much more versatile than I thought, and this is going to be the board I use for everything. So yeah, really impressed. Woo. Love it.
Okay, so let's talk about wing foiling. So initially this was not on my radar. I just assumed that this was a downwind specific board. I had the gear in my van, a little bit of a light breeze popped up when I was on the lake, so I thought I'd give it a go, and I was really pleasantly surprised. It's really good fun. You can wing it, no problems. I think where it would have its limitations is putting it into waves. I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that. For that, I'd recommend the more traditional downwind style boards. They're a little bit shorter. So where the downwind performance board comes into its own is practicing downwind runs with a wing. You can get away with a tiny wing because it's so efficient, and you can pop on the downwind performance foil and really practice that connecting and pumping between waves whilst you're holding like a 3 meter or a 2.5 wing, because they're so efficient. Using the downwind foils for winging, well, look, I think you can do it for sure. I don't think they're designed for it. They go upwind really well. They're really efficient. They're not the fastest foils in the world. They do keep up with rolling swells, obviously, and they do have a really good low end. But I think where their niche is really is that downwinding. They're efficient and they pump really well, but they just don't turn as well as one of the high aspect wings. So I would say that if you're going to wing, probably pop on the high aspects and leave the downwinding performance foils for that. Okay, so let's get into the meat of it, which is downwinding in the open ocean. And this is where the downwind performance board and foil really come into their own. Now, the thing that I was surprised more than anything else was, again, the stability. And that's because of the length. Basically, because it's so long, you have a lot of stability in terms of pitch when it's on the water. So you only have to worry about the roll. It's not like the early days when you had really short downwind boards where it was like you were standing on a medicine ball. It was unstable in all axes. At least you have stability in one axis, which means you can focus on the other. The speed to be able to get up onto foil when there's a bump is noticeable compared to other boards that I've used. It really just accelerates down the face of the wave, which means you can jump up onto foil way quicker than I was with previous boards. And the big so what of that is I can start to now use the smaller, more high performance foils. And the great thing about that is once you're on foil, a smaller foil is actually easier because it turns better and you can go where you want to depending on where the bumps are. So I found in my journey that the smaller the foil I've got, the easier that run has become. The pump, look, it's a long board. At 8'11", you are going to notice that difference between, the difference between that and something that's around 7 foot, of course. But because of the tracks are so far forward, it does allow you to stand pretty much in the center of the board, which reduces that swing weight and makes it feel like a much smaller board. The feature that I love about this board, it's a small detail, but I absolutely love it. It's the fact that Army has now put markers or indicators on the top of the board as to where the foil tracks are. Now that is amazing. I can't believe that he's the only one that's thought of this so far, because it means that you know exactly where your foot is in relation to the mast and therefore the foil. It really helps. There's also a really nice little bump, which means you can feel where your foot is without having to look down. Tiny little details, but that's what Armstrong were amazing about. Everything about the board oozes high quality. I don't say this enough about the Armstrong stuff, but the accessories and the extras and the attention to detail is second to none. The board bag that comes in, super high quality. I think you struggle to buy one of those board bags on the open market that matches the quality. They really have thought about it, and it just oozes quality and performance. Now, the other thing that I was worried about with a board of this dimensions was the fun factor. Is it going to take away from turning down the waves? Yes, it's obviously going to go fast because you can use a smaller foil and go from A to B as quickly as possible. But for me, that's not really what it's all about. I like carving the waves and riding down and jumping and having fun. And for me, that's what downwinding is all about. And I was worried that with a board like this, it was just about racing. And I couldn't have been further from the truth. It really does turn very well. It's stable, your feet feel really planted, and you don't feel off balance at all. So in terms of the foils then, so I've got the 930, the 755 in terms of the downwind performance. Look, I'll be honest with you, I haven't quite got to the stage where I'm using the 755. It's a combination of not having the right conditions since I've had it, and also just getting comfortable with one foil, which is the 930. I'm really comfortable with that. It's very progressive. It gets up really early. I've been using with a combination of both the Speed 180 and also the Dart 140 with a blue shim. And I think I've now settled on the 140 with the blue shim. That tends to be a really nice setup, and it can get me going in the majority of conditions that I'm after. It's fast, it's responsive, it pumps really well, and it's got a very low stall speed. Much more accessible than I thought it would be. And I think I'm going to put it into the same category that if you are in the area where you're getting up onto foils, perhaps using the 1180, the 1080, and then you get good conditions, that's the point at which you want to come down to the 930. Okay, as promised, let's have a little bit of a deep dive into the standard downwind board and give you some of my feedback. So I went for the 116 litre board, which is 7'9" by 20¼ wide. A little bit longer than the previous generation, which means it paddles up a little bit easier. They've done some changes to the underside, and the all-round feeling of it is that it's a little bit more high performance. Given the fact that they've increased that waterline length, it paddles faster, which means you can go for slightly smaller foils. But it also feels more stable as well with that extra length that they've got with it. They've introduced a grab handle, which makes it super easy to take the board to and from the water. Where I think this board comes into its own is if you want one board to do it all. So this wings really well, it downwinds well, it's got performance, it paddles up nice and easy. Yes, it's not going to have the niche, the top end of the downwind performance, but it does have everything else with it. Okay, in summary, the downwind performance range from Armstrong is not just for pros. Intermediates could absolutely use them, have a great time, and push their foiling to the next level. I do not think that the downwind performance board is for beginners. I think you'd benefit from having a more traditional shape, but for those intermediates, you're definitely going to get more speed, start using smaller foils, and really start exploring the ocean more than you would do on a standard board. They've got some amazing features, the build quality is next level, and the accessories you get with it is unmatched. I don't think you'll go wrong or be disappointed by buying one of these boards. I hope you found that useful. I hope you got something out of it. Please feel free to comment in the description below. And if you've got any questions at all, if you've got something out of it, then please like and subscribe. It really does help us build the channel and help generate a revenue for Bear Cottage. See you again on the water soon.